Hey, welcome back. If you are just starting with us here, you should go back and find the first two parts of the bear sign. So this is clearly labeled as part 3. I don't know why you would be watching this first. Scat. Bear scat. How do I describe bear scat? Well, it looks like you should first carefully look around and see if there's any toilet paper, napkins, half a t-shirt, a sock. And if you find none of those things, you can probably be pretty certain you're looking at bear scat. Bear scat sometimes is cylindrical, so log-like. Sometimes it's more ploppy like this one here, but it's usually in pretty good quantities. And since bears are omnivores, bear scat can often vary in what it has in it. How fresh is fresh? If I say to you that we find some fresh bear scat, like in this last picture, maybe I should go back here. So this scat we found in a hike in Massachusetts, and we were guessing that had happened that morning or sometime, or in the early morning, maybe before sunrise. It was still very very crisp. All of the edges were still intact. It had a very strong smell to it, and it was wet even when nothing around it was. So it looked like it was super fresh to us. Let me give you an idea of how quickly scat can disappear in the environment. So this is wolf scat, and if you took Count 102 recently and hung on my every word, maybe you'll remember this story. And I recognize this is wolf scat, but this was a special kind of wolf scat. This is a blood scat. So the wolves had killed an elk, and they lap up the blood. They eat the lungs, they eat the liver, and it's a lot of gooey stuff. So when this pair of wolves walked in front of our camera, we knew what time they walked by, and when we found the scat, we knew how old the scat was. We were about 4 hours behind the wolves. So this scat is about 4 hours old. Now, this is Idaho in August, and it was dry, very dry conditions, and hot. So when we went hike, we followed the wolves for a long ways. Then we lost them at some point when they left the trail. And on our way back, we passed this spot again. And that's what that wolf scat looked like 4 hours later. I'm sorry if that. I wish I had remembered what angle I took the picture at, and then I would have taken the second picture at the same angle. But you can see here I've lined it all up. So this little chunk is this chunk, this piece is this piece. My God, it looks like it'd been there for 100 years. That could be a fossil poop right there. That could be a great grandfather of the wolf that passed by. So it only took 4 hours in that very dry conditions for that scat to look ancient. I'll give you another example. My wife and I were hiking, and we had a bear encounter here, and it does look like we're very close. I do have a telephoto lens on, but we were very close. And this bear's nose is actually in a pile of bear scat. So this bear didn't want to have anything to do with me. He was following another bear. So maybe this is a male following a female. Maybe this is a male investigating another male. I'm certain that this bear was a male because I got to follow him for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. But the bear's got it. Literally has its nose in the scat, and as the bear turned to its right and walked towards the back end of the picture here, I stopped and pulled out my cell phone and took this picture. And you can I can actually see the nose print right here. That's where the bear pressed its nose right into that scat. I do want to point out these long pieces of grass right here. Okay, so we had such a cool encounter with this bear that the next day, it was our very last day there. We went back to this same exact trail, hoping we'd bump into this bear or another bear again. And of course, I passed this scat again. It's 24 hours later, and the ants had discovered the scat. Look how different it looks. And there's that long strips of grass again. But look what the ants have done. They've just like spread it all out, and it looks like it's disintegrating before your eyes. So when I tell you that this scat is fresh, it's because it's going to look very different very soon in most cases. Here's some scat that was not fresh. This scat looked like it was all crusted over. All the edges were all round. And when I poked into it, it was a very different color on the inside versus on the outside. It looked like it had been eating stuff with some very, very fine berries to it, seeds to it, excuse me. And this is the proper way to investigate scat, with 2 random sticks that you find, not with your fingers. Here's one that I found at my dad's property. This bear scat, it contained all the shredded husks of acorns. So this bear was eating acorns. And this bear was eating garbage. And you can see the bag, and you might be able to read it. It says sliced and onion. The entire bag was sliced liver and onion, which is way better to give to a bear than to eat yourself. I don't like either of those foods. But of course, this bear ingested all that plastic as well, and that plastic passed right out of it. Here's some kind of gross bear scat, and I say that because none of that other scat was gross. This is some bear scat that we found in February in New York State. So let's talk about a couple things. What are bears supposed to be doing in February in New York State? Right. Sleeping, right? Not pooping. But this particular scat is made up of all birdseed. So this was a large male. The DEC ended up trapping this bear in a culvert trap and putting a radio collar on. It was about 350 pounds. And it was coming back and forth from its den because it was near a house that had a bunch of bird feeders. And the family that owned the house, the older couple, they were just super ecstatic that the bear was coming. They were not afraid of it. They were excited about it. And when the DEC told them you got to take down your bird feeders, they didn't listen because that meant that the bear wasn't going to come back and keep visiting them. Now, it looks like the bear may have even stepped in his own scat at this point. And on the right-hand side, it's all flattened. But I do want you to notice the overall greenish tinge here. And maybe you'll be able to remember this. Can you get past this one? Is anybody eating? Is anyone watching this on the big screen television with their family? Go ahead and call them all in right now. This is gross. So we haven't done the physiology part yet, but both in your textbook, in DeBruyn's book, and in a lecture that I'm going to give you, we're going to talk about how a bear's metabolism basically shuts down in many areas in the winter, and that's how they go through their sleep. And their digestion slows down to almost nothing. So the bile that they produce, the bile, gets gets backed up in their intestines, and bile is green. So these slugs that they pass in the spring are just slugs of bile that they have been loading up throughout the winter because they haven't been using it. So that's where all the greenish look came for that previous one. So he probably passed this one first, and that other one was a second one. Yeah, they're gross. We're almost out of bear sign at this point, and I would like to mention this one because this is just a really cool one and a hard one to find in the woods. This is what's called a straddle tree, and we're back in North Carolina, and I showed you the picture of that bear with his nose in the poop, and this is along that trail that I was following him along, and this tree is bent over like this because a black bear straddled it, right? So that means it put its right legs on the right side of the tree, its left legs on the left side of the tree, and then walked over it. And when it did, and whether it did it once or more than once, the tree ended up breaking. And you can tell what direction the bear was going when it did that. So why do bears straddle trees? Well, maybe I need to show you one in action here. So you can see that I'm keeping a respectful distance from this bear. I have my telephoto lens on, and so I'm not even as close as it looks like in this picture. I would like you to look at the stalk here between the bear's leg. The bear is actually straddling a tree as we speak. And if I set him in motion, boom, that's quite a straddle. Okay, so what would make that tree, what would make that bear literally leave the trail, purposely go over there, and then walk over that thing? Well, the answer is that's the only way I can rub my genitals on it, which is the correct answer here. Not for the purposes of leaving scent behind. So both scent glands and urine are often left on these straddle trees, and that's what the bear is doing. Here, let's take another look, and you may notice I'm a little closer to the bear. The longer I followed this bear, the longer I realized that bear didn't give a darn about me whatsoever. So I got a little bit braver here. Okay. So if I just came upon that scene and that tree just looked like that, I mean, it would have to be so fresh that I could find the urine on it or smell the musk of it. Neither of which I have ever been able to do in the wild. So it's not until the tree has it happen so many times that it gets damaged that you really can tell us a straddle tree. Okay, so our last bit of bear sign here. You ready? This is what's called a ritual trail. So ritual trails, I have that in quotes there because not every author uses that term here. Some, I'll give you a couple other ideas, but some actually resist this term because the term ritual sounds like maybe like a religious ceremony of some sort, for example. What ritual really means is a ritual is a pattern. It's a habit that you have, and this is a case where bears will walk in the same footsteps that either they or another bear had walked in over and over again. That's the ritual part of this. So I recognize that this is difficult to see. So I have a bunch of pictures. We'll do our best here. But what I want you to see is how pressed down this track is. This footfall is pressed down so far that that's how far down it's been pressed. That's the sidewall of it. So it is literally inches down. You can see it here, and then you can see the next one here. You can see that edge again. When I first learned about this, it was in a class that I took in Massachusetts, and then we ended up, as I said, hiring these people. And when I had some grant money and bringing my black bear students out there, all of the students in the class were just floored by this. It was just so different from anything we had ever seen before, and it was hard to wrap your head around. Partly because sometimes it was very hard to see. So in this case, I've got my daughter there. She's going to be embarrassed by the fingernails. I think she was about 14 in this picture, if we can give her a little bit of a break. She's got her hand in this one, and it just so happened that this one was perfectly lit up by a little beam of light coming through the canopy here. And these footfalls are not the product of 100 years of erosion. They're created very quickly by a bear stepping down and purposely grinding its weight into the soil, and then often turning around and coming back in the same footfalls, then turning around and going back again. I'll show you that a little bit later. There's some researchers in Europe that are calling them pediment marking. Okay, we kind of here in the United States, anything that starts with petty, we kind of shy away from because it can't end well. But petty, just in this case, PEDE, means foot. So these are foot markings. And I hope you can see them in this picture. This one, this one, this one, this one. You got them? If you're still a little on the edge there, maybe I can help you out. Here's one that we found in North Carolina, and this one was super fresh. It looked like a bear had been using it, and you can see the 4 footfalls here very easily. What's interesting about these is Nick and Val, the people that showed us these. Now, they didn't invent this, they didn't discover these, but they are the ones that I know that have been taking some careful measurements. Here is one of the footfalls, and they've got it outlined with popsicle sticks and a little golf tee in the middle here. Here's another one with the popsicle sticks and a golf tee in the middle there. And what they're measuring is both the stride, how far it is from one track to the other, and the straddle, or the width of the trail. And what they found is that these trails are exaggerated in both directions. The bear's footprints are farther apart from each other in distance and in width. So it seems like the bear is making an exaggerated kind of a motion as it's walking to purposely create these trails. Now, there's a couple theories about that. So imagine that imagine you're on all fours and you're stepping very long in front of you, but you're also stepping wide, right? So we talked a minute ago about those straddle trees and how urine is deposited as a scent. If you spread out your back legs like that and you urinate in the middle as you're walking, the scent gets left behind instead of getting on your fur and such. I have a theory that adult bears do this and stretch their feet like this, and that stops smaller, younger, immature bears from participating in this marking behavior. And I have no idea whether any of that's true or not, but that's my theory here. Nick is taking some measurements on a tree that's along this ritual trail, and often these ritual trails will lead to, or away from, or both, a major marking tree. So the next time you find, or maybe the first time you find, a tree with lots of bites and scratches on it from a bear, look at your feet. Look at coming towards it, going away from it, and often you'll find these footfalls. In North Carolina, we found so many of these; it was unbelievable. Here are some. We parked along the side of the road just to take a walk in the woods, and here's the footfall trail here from a black bear. We're driving along, and I spot this major marking tree here. Right, obviously multiple marks, ancient marks, older marks, and I said we got to stop and take a look. And there was a stomp trail going right up to it, just as I would expect. Here's another look. Those are my shoes there, and you can see there is a footprint in front of each one of my feet there. Now, I learned about this in Massachusetts. I saw it in North Carolina in 2019. But in between there, in the 9 years in between, was never able to find one in New York State. I had always looked for one. And we did newspaper articles on it, tried to get people to help us find these, and I just was terrible at being able to find them. Well, I have a couple cameras that I'm going to show you down on my dad's property down in Wayland, and one of them actually ended up, oops, I got to get that out of laser pointer. I don't know how to not make it a laser pointer. Oh, unpin it. Yeah, there we go. And one, I'm so sorry to learn along with you. One of them actually showed a ritual trail being made. So how's this? A YouTube video inside of a YouTube video. In August of 2017, I captured on camera a bear actually making one of these. So here's where he very first arrives on the scene. So here in the front, all the vegetation is undisturbed. Here comes the bear towards the camera. That's one. He goes away from the camera. That's two. Comes back. That's three. On his fourth pass. Fifth. Sixth, 7, 8, and 9, and 10, and 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. In the matter of a few moments, this bear walked back and forth 15 times. Look at these marks here. Guys, that's how quickly a bear trail or a ritual trail or whatever you choose to call it, petted markings happen. They look like they take forever to make because they are so deep, but the truth of the matter is they're made instantaneously. Now that particular trail didn't get maintained, so I can't show you that trail, but that was a cool instance. I can show you where it happened though. Questions? Do you have your hand up? Because I can't see you. This is a video. Hey, good talk, everybody. I hope you watched all 3 parts. I hope you got a lot out of that.